I thought I'd lost my grandson forever. For 10 years, he never called, never wrote, never came home. But the day I found him, shivering under a bridge, clutching his newborn baby, I realized fate wasn't done with us. I took them home on my private jet, but I never imagined what he'd confess once we were in the air. I always believed that people eventually return to where they once felt loved. Some come back older, some come back broken, but they come back. At least that's what I used to tell myself when the nights got too long and the loneliness dug into my bones. But 10 years is a long time to wait for someone who never promised to return. My grandson Noah had vanished when he was just 16. A sudden fight with his father, a slammed door, and the next morning, silence. No footsteps in the hall, no cereal bowl on the counter, no rumpled bedsheets. He had simply disappeared, leaving behind a frightened family and a heartbroken grandmother. We searched for him, of course we did. Flyers, phone calls, detectives. For months, I walked streets I had never seen before, stopping strangers, describing his face, his brown eyes, his shy smile. But the city swallowed him whole. No answers ever came. With time, hope shrinks, not all at once, but like a candle burning to its wick. And eventually, you learn to live with that small, cold darkness inside you. Until the night, everything changed. I was returning from a charity gala, sitting in the back of my black sedan with the city lights flickering against the windows. It had started to rain, the kind of sharp, metallic drizzle that hits the ground like tiny needles. My driver slowed as we approached an underpass, one infamous in the city for the homeless camps that gathered there. Normally, I avoided looking out the window. It broke my heart, and sometimes guilt crept up on me that I had so much while so many had nothing. But that night, something, an instinct, a whisper, tilted my head toward the glass, and my heart nearly stopped beating. There, beneath a stained concrete pillar, huddled a young man, skinny, clothes soaked, hair matted. He cradled something, no, someone, wrapped in a torn blanket. He rocked gently, like he was trying to keep himself awake. But it wasn't his posture that froze me. It was his face. Even blurred by rain and distance, I knew that face. I had memorized it years ago, tracing each feature in old photographs I kept tucked in drawers and wallets and on my nightstand. "Noah," I whispered. My driver glanced at me through the mirror. "Ma'am?" "Stop the car." He hesitated. His instructions were always to avoid stopping in unsafe areas, but something in my voice must have cut through his concern. The brakes hissed, and before he had even fully pulled over, I opened the door and stepped out into the rain. The cold hit me instantly, but my feet moved fast, splashing through the puddles as I hurried toward the bridge. The smell of damp concrete, exhaust, and wet fabric grew stronger. "Noah?" I called softly, as if the wrong tone would scare him away. The figure stiffened. He turned his head slowly, and when his eyes met mine, brown eyes, the same shade as his mother's, I felt my throat close. He blinked, confused, exhausted, like he wasn't sure I was real. "Grandma?" he rasped. I didn't even remember moving closer. Suddenly, I was kneeling in front of him, my hands on his trembling arms. His clothes were soaked and thin, barely enough for cold weather. His cheeks were hollow, his lips were pale. But it was him, my lost boy, my missing child. "Oh God, Noah," I whispered, brushing wet hair from his forehead. "What happened to you?" He didn't answer. His gaze drifted down to the blanket in his arms. A tiny face peeked out, rosy, sleeping, no more than a month old. A little fist curled against Noah's chest. My breath left me. "A baby?" He nodded weakly. "My daughter. Her name is Lily." The baby stirred, letting out a soft whimper. Noah held her tighter, but his arms shook from cold and exhaustion. "How long have you been out here?" I asked. He swallowed hard. Rain dripped from his eyelashes. "Months." My heart broke. It split straight down the middle, like glass under pressure. "Why didn't you come to me?" I whispered. He opened his mouth, but no words came, just a tremble in his jaw, a shame he couldn't hide. He had always been sensitive, always afraid of disappointing people. And whatever had happened in those 10 years, it had crushed him. I placed my hand gently on the baby's head, feeling warmth beneath the rain-damped blanket. "You can't stay here," I said firmly. "Both of you are coming with me." "No, Grandma," he murmured, shrinking back. I can't. I don't want to burden you." "A burden?" My voice cracked. "You are my family. You are my heart. There is no world where you could ever burden me." Tears spilled down his face, hot tears cutting tracks through the rain. He bowed his head. "Please," he whispered, "help us." I nodded, already shifting into motion. "Stand up slowly. I've got you." He tried, but his legs buckled. He hadn't eaten well in a long time. His body was thin, fragile. I signaled my driver, who hurried over with an umbrella, and together we lifted him gently to his feet. He clung to the baby tightly, as if afraid someone might take her away. Once in the car, I wrapped him with my coat, tucking it around him and the baby. Lily whimpered softly, and I reached out to stroke her tiny cheek. "She's beautiful," I whispered. "She looks like her mother," he murmured. I wanted to ask 100 questions. Who was the mother? Where was she? What had happened? Why had he disappeared for so long? But I stayed quiet. The answers could wait. He needed warmth first, safety, food, rest. Questions could come later. When we pulled into the private hangar, Noah stared through the window in disbelief. "Your jet?" he asked weakly. "Yes," I squeezed his hand. "We're flying home tonight." He looked down, shame flooding his expression again. "I haven't even showered. I'm dirty. You are my grandson," I cut in, leaning close. "Nothing else matters." His lips trembled. The jet crew rushed to prepare warm blankets and hot drinks. Noah stepped inside slowly, like he didn't believe he was allowed in such a place. He kept the baby close, shielding her from the cooler air. When he finally sat down in the plush leather seat, his body sagged with exhaustion. I sat beside him, covering both of them with another blanket. The engines hummed softly, and the jet lights cast a warm glow over us. For a moment, everything was quiet. And then Noah whispered, "There's something I need to tell you, Grandma. Something I've never told anyone." I turned to him, heart pounding. "What is it, sweetheart?" His eyes glistened. "You're not going to forgive me, not after what I did." My stomach dropped. And then, from behind the blanket, baby Lily began to cry, as if she sensed the storm about to break. Baby Lily's soft cries filled the cabin, echoing off the polished wood and leather. Something so delicate and pure, it cut straight through the heavy silence that had begun to form between us. Noah tried bouncing her gently, whispering soothing little sounds, the same way I used to soothe him when he was a baby. The memory stung, sweet and painful. I watched him carefully. His hands trembled, part nerves, part exhaustion. But the way he held his daughter was steady, protective, instinctive. Whatever mistakes he thought he'd made, he clearly loved that little girl with every fragile piece of his heart. When Lily finally settled into a soft whimper, Noah turned toward me. His eyes were red. Whether from crying or lack of sleep, I couldn't tell. Probably both. Rainwater had dried on his cheeks, leaving faint marks like silver trails. He swallowed hard. "Grandma," he whispered, "I need you to know, I didn't run away because I hated home." I felt something tighten in my chest. For 10 years, I had lived with the ache of questions that had no answers. Why had he left? Why hadn't he called? Why had he chosen the streets over us? And now, finally, the truth was about to spell out. "Then why did you go, sweetheart?" I asked softly. He stared at his hands. "Because Dad said I wasn't welcome anymore." My breath caught. "That can't be. Your father was furious that you left. He wanted you home." "No," Noah whispered, his voice breaking. "He wanted me gone.
He told me I ruined his life, that I was a mistake he couldn't keep fixing. My heart shattered into pieces so sharp it almost hurt to breathe. That's not true, I insisted. Your father said many things in anger, but— It wasn't anger, Noah said quietly. He meant it. Memories flashed through my mind. My son pacing the living room, yelling after Noah ran away. The slammed doors, the guilt, the regret. All those years I had believed my son was grieving a loss he never meant to cause. And maybe he had. Or maybe he was too proud to admit what he had done. I exhaled shakily. Noah, if he said that, he was wrong. Completely wrong. I didn't know that, he said, his breath hitching. I was 16. I thought he meant it. And I was ashamed. I didn't want to show up on your doorstep with nothing, like some— Stop, I whispered, reaching over and covering his hand with mine. You are my grandson. You could come to me with nothing but the clothes on your back, and I would still open my arms for you. His face crumpled. Then came the words that struck hardest of all. But that's not even the worst part. The hum of the engines filled the silence between his breaths. I didn't come back because I was afraid you'd find out what I did before I left. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. What do you mean, sweetheart? He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. I stole something. I held my breath. From who? He hesitated. Too long, too painfully. From you, he whispered. The world seemed to tilt slightly. From me? He nodded, shame flooding his expression. I didn't mean to. I panicked. I thought if I left with something valuable, I could start over somewhere far away, make money, build a life. I was stupid. I was desperate. What did you take? He looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Your jewelry box. For a moment, I just stared at him. The pale blue velvet box, my mother's ring, my husband's cufflinks, the necklace my son bought me for my 50th birthday. Priceless, not for the gold, but for the memories carved into each piece. I remembered finding it missing the morning after Noah vanished. I thought maybe I misplaced it. I never suspected him, not once. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to breathe. Noah watched me, like he was waiting for a punishment he still believed he deserved.
I'm sorry, he whispered, tears spilling again. I was such an idiot. I sold almost everything. I wasted it. And when I realized what I had done, I was too ashamed to face you. How could I show you my face after taking something so precious, after ruining all the memories you loved? He lowered his head, shoulders shaking. Lily stirred at the movement, and he immediately stopped crying to keep from waking her. That alone told me everything I needed to know about the man he had become. I reached out, cupping his cheek gently. Noah, look at me. He hesitated, then lifted his face. What you did was wrong, I said softly, honestly. It hurt me deeply. But do you know what hurt more? He shook his head. That you suffered alone for 10 years because you thought I wouldn't forgive you. He blinked rapidly, stunned. No object is more important to me than you, I whispered, than your life, than your happiness. I would have given you that box if it meant keeping you safe. He let out a broken sound, half sob, half gasp. I don't deserve you, he murmured. You deserve love, I corrected, and you deserve to come home. He covered his face with his free hand, overwhelmed by emotion. I let him cry, rubbing his shoulder gently. The jet wasn't even halfway through its ascent, but something inside me already felt lighter, warmer, a wound finally beginning to close after bleeding for a decade. When he calmed down, he leaned back in his seat, holding the baby close again. Lily's tiny fingers wrapped around the fabric of his shirt, anchoring him. The sight softened me further. She's beautiful, I whispered. Tell me about her mother. His expression changed, grief mixed with guilt, a memory too raw to touch. She died, he said quietly.
My breath hitched. "Oh, Noah, I'm so sorry." He nodded slowly, eyes distant. We were living in a shared room at a shelter when she went into labor. Complications. They said she'd lost too much blood. I held her hand until she was gone. A tear slipped down his cheek, but he didn't wipe it. She made me promise I'd take care of Lily. She made me swear it. I tried, Grandma. I really tried. You did, I said firmly. You kept her safe. You kept her alive. That's proof you tried. He closed his eyes, letting the words sink in. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of the engine filled the silence, steady and comforting. Then he said something that chilled me. I didn't think I'd make it another week. I sucked in a breath. Noah. I was starving, sick. I couldn't get enough formula. I think I was starting to give up. He looked at his daughter, tenderness and fear etched in every line of his face. But she looked at me, Grandma. She looked right at me today. And I told her, I'm sorry, Princess. Daddy tried. And then you showed up. His voice cracked. I think you saved us. My eyes burned with tears I refused to let fall. He had always been sensitive, always carried more weight than a child should. Life had carved deep wounds into him, but somehow he still found the strength to love that tiny little girl. I placed my hand over his. Noah, I said softly, you're not alone anymore. You're home. As if on cue, the jet's lights dimmed to their nighttime setting. Noah leaned his head back, exhaustion pulling at him. His eyelids fluttered. Grandma? Yes, sweetheart. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let anyone take Lily away from me, please. A strange shiver ran down my spine. Why would anyone try to take her? But Noah was already drifting into sleep, his answer barely audible. Because of who's looking for us. My heart froze. Then he fell completely asleep, baby Lily nestled safely in his arms. I sat beside him, wide awake, the fear crawling slowly up my spine. Who was looking for them?
And why did Noah sound so afraid? Noah slept curled around the baby like she was the last warm ember of a dying fire. His breathing was uneven, shallow, exhaustion battling nightmares. I watched him the entire flight, unable to shake the last words he whispered before sleep took him. Because of who's looking for us. Who? Why? What danger had he stumbled into? The questions twisted inside me as the jet hummed through the clouds. Every time Lily whimpered, Noah's arms tightened reflexively, even in sleep. A father's instinct, a child's fear, a man hunted by ghosts he hadn't yet named. We landed just after midnight. A soft fog covered the runway, curling like pale smoke around the jet's wheels. The moment the engines powered down, Noah jerked awake, eyes wide, breath quick and sharp. It's okay, I whispered, touching his arm gently. You're safe. We're home. Home, he repeated, like the word tasted unfamiliar on his tongue. Yes, sweetheart. Lily stirred in his arms, her tiny face scrunching before relaxing again. Noah looked at her with wonder and fear that the world would take her, hurt her, claim yet another piece of his heart. He stood slowly, swaying from weakness. I held his elbow. He was light, too light, like gravity barely had anything to hold on to. The car ride to the estate was quiet. Noah stared out the window, watching the gates open, his lips parted slightly in awe. He hadn't been here since he was little. He probably didn't remember the long driveway, the lanterns glowing softly in the rose garden, the massive oak doors that once seemed magical to him. Inside, the staff rushed forward, but I raised a hand. Prepare a guest suite, extra warm, humidifier on, soft lighting, and bring formula, blankets, and a bassinet to the room. They moved instantly, disappearing down the hall. Noah blinked, stunned. Grandma, this is too much. No, I said firmly, it's the bare minimum. He swallowed hard. We walked upstairs together. I opened the door to the guest suite, revealing a cozy room with golden lamps, soft rugs, and a large bed freshly made. The
The bassinet sat beside it, tiny and perfect. Noah ran a hand over the blankets, overwhelmed. He looked at me, eyes shining. "Thank you." "Sleep, sweetheart," I said gently. "We'll talk in the morning." He nodded slowly, then added in a small voice, "Can you stay until I fall asleep?" I blinked. The request pierced something tender inside me. Of course. He lay on the bed with Lily beside him, one hand resting protectively on her tiny chest. I pulled a chair close and held his hand. He closed his eyes, breathing deep, letting the warmth of the room soak into his bones. Within minutes, he drifted off. I stroked his hair lightly, something I used to do when he was little and afraid of thunderstorms. He didn't stir. For the first time in 10 years, I watched my grandson sleep safely. But the peace didn't last long. It was barely dawn when a frantic knock jolted me awake. I had fallen asleep in the chair, my hand still wrapped around Noah's. He stirred at the noise. "Grandma," he whispered, sitting up quickly, "they found me." My blood ran cold. "Who?" Before he could answer, the butler's muffled voice came through the door. "Madam, there are 2 men at the gate. They say they're here for Noah." Noah's face drained of color. His hands shook violently. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. They can't take her. Grandma, please, please don't let them in." I rushed to him, gripping his shoulders. "Who are they, Noah?" His breath hitched. My wife's parents." That stunned me. Lily's grandparents? He nodded, panic rising in his eyes. "They blame me for their daughter's death. They said I was unfit. They said they'd take Lily from me the moment they found us." He clutched the sleeping baby to his chest. "They tried already. The hospital, social workers. They said I wasn't stable, that I didn't have a home or money. They were going to file for custody." My heart slammed in my chest. "And that's why you ran?" I whispered. "I didn't want to lose her. She's all I have left." Tears ran silently down his cheeks. "They said I killed her mother, but I didn't. I loved her. I tried. I swear I tried to save her." I wrapped my arms around him tightly. He sobbed into my shoulder, shaking like a frightened child. "You're not losing your daughter," I said firmly. "Not while I'm breathing." He pulled back, eyes wide. "But they're powerful, Grandma. They have lawyers, money, connections. I'm nothing." "No," I corrected softly, tilting his chin up. "You are the father of that precious little girl. You are my grandson, and that makes you far from nothing." I stood up. "Stay here, lock the door, I'll talk to them." The moment I reached the front hall, 2 people were waiting, security holding them back at the entrance until I approved entry. A well-dressed older couple, the woman's face tight with cold determination, the man's jaw clenched in anger. "We're here for our granddaughter," the woman said sharply before I could speak. "No," I said calmly, "you are here to talk." Her expression twisted. "He kidnapped that baby?" "He did nothing of the sort," I replied, voice steady. "He saved her." The man stepped forward. "He's irresponsible, homeless, unstable. Our daughter died because he—" "Stop," I said. "Your daughter died from medical complications. Tragedy, not blame." The woman hardened. "He is not fit to raise a child." "Maybe he wasn't," I admitted gently, "but he came to me, and with my support, he will be." The man scoffed. "You think money fixes everything?" "No," I sharply, "but love does." They faltered, surprised. Then I continued quietly. "And right now, he is the only loving constant that baby has."
Silence. The woman's face crumbled for a moment, grief breaking through her anger. "We lost our daughter," she whispered. "She was our only child." "And I lost my grandson for 10 years," I replied softly. "We both know what it feels like to lose someone." Tears filled her eyes. "But," she whispered, "we just want her safe." "She is safe," I said, "but tearing her father away would destroy him, and eventually her too." The man lowered his head. I took a slow breath. "Let's work together. No courts, no threats, no fear. Let's build something for that child instead of fighting for the pieces." To my astonishment, the woman wiped her tears and whispered, What do you propose?" An hour later, after long, emotional negotiations, we reached an agreement. Shared guardianship, therapy for Noah, parenting classes, weekly visits, financial and emotional support from both sides. Not a war. A family rebuilt from ruins. When I returned to Noah's room, he was pacing, baby in arms, eyes wide with terror. "What happened?" he asked, breathless. I smiled softly and opened my arms. "Come here." He stepped into me, trembling. "They're not taking her," I whispered. His breath caught. "But they were so angry." "They were grieving," I corrected gently, "just like you." He closed his eyes, tears spilling down. "But they want to help now, truly help, and they agreed to share guardianship." He looked at me like he was seeing light after a long night. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Why would they agree to that?" I brushed his cheek. "Because you love her, because you ran with her when you thought she'd be taken, because you slept under a bridge just to keep her safe, and because you were willing to face them, even broken, if it meant saving her." Lily made a small hiccuping sound and opened her eyes. Noah looked down at her, his entire face softening. "So, she's staying with me?" he whispered. "With us," I corrected. "You're home, Noah, and she is too." He collapsed into my arms, sobbing with relief. The weeks that followed were healing in ways I never imagined possible. Noah's health returned, his cheeks filled, his smile, tentative at first, grew warmer each day. He started therapy. He took parenting classes. He bonded with Lily's grandparents, slowly, carefully, cautiously. And they, stoic and grieving, began to see him as the young father their daughter had loved, not the boy they blamed. Lily grew, blooming under the love of an entire family she never knew she had. Sometimes I would peek into Noah's room at night and find him rocking her gently, humming lullabies with a tenderness that broke me. Sometimes I'd find Lily's grandparents visiting, bringing toys or books or tiny knitted sweaters. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, we became a team, a unit, a family stitched back together with forgiveness and second chances. One evening, as the sun painted the sky gold, Noah stepped onto the balcony where I sat with a cup of tea. He leaned down, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Grandma, thank you for finding us." I squeezed his hand. "You weren't lost, sweetheart. You were just waiting to come home." He smiled softly and looked at Lily sleeping in her stroller. "She saved me," he whispered. I shook my head. "No, Noah, you saved each other." He took a deep breath, then wrapped his arms around me from behind, something he hadn't done since he was a little boy. And for the first time in 10 long years, my heart felt whole again. Because despite everything, the pain, the mistakes, the storms that nearly tore us apart, we found our way back. Love always finds a way home.